Hello, world. Esper here. Thank you very much for joining me on the Bardstream once again. This episode, if I can call it an episode, this time I'm going to be having another guest, a VIP from my Patreon page. Actually, I was just talking with him now, and we are having a really cool conversation already. And I thought, man, we should just continue this conversation live because I think other people would enjoy this as well. So we'll do that. And then I've got a couple other just small things to talk about. And then I'd like to take questions from you all as well. I always enjoy doing the Q&A stuff. Just a quick little preview of something. Oh, here, okay, because I'm backwards compared to my camera. I've got something here I might show off here just a few minutes. But we're gonna bring on our guest here. Welcome
Thank
again.
you.
Welcome back.
Pleasure.
Everybody, this is Nigel, aka Mad Freak, on my Patreon and probably on other corners of the interweb as well. Thanks for joining me.
It's no problem. It's a pleasure that you invited me. I'm glad that I got picked this time.
Awesome. Well, it was the random dice roll of fate that chose you, so maybe it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Speaking of this like meant to be thing, we were just talking about something really cool. You were saying something that's very similar to thoughts that I've had a lot of how uh, role playing games, tabletop, D&D, this whole experience can bring people together. It can connect us on interesting levels, from friendships to, I think you said you met your girlfriend through D&D or something like
Yes.
that.
Met her through
Yeah,
D&D.
met your girlfriend through D&D. Um, People end up forming these kinds of bonds and finding some more meaning to it beyond just the adventures. And I'm trying to remember exactly the way I phrased it. It was like it's cool enough to play a game and roll the dice and fight the monsters and get the treasure and level up and build your character. That in and of itself is pretty cool. But there's something more that appeals to me that has some kind of meaning involved with it that I think is something primal.
Hmm.
Uh, and I'm sure this goes back to who knows how long, right? Through all of our eras and ages of the world, we told stories and
Yeah.
like epic legends and had our hero tales, and probably even like early humans were probably like around their bonfire, like telling their stories and their ghost stories and their stories about their heroes and spirits and the whatever spooky things are out there.
Yes.
Uh, so man, yeah, this is something that I think about a lot actually.
I really do too. Like it's just a weird feeling because I've seen people get so emotionally invested into D&D and things like, for the good, not toxic, emotionally invested. But so many people, like I've seen people laugh, cry. I've shared moments where in the game my friend's character got wronged or got murdered, and I was like, "Yo, like this has got me feeling some kind of way." The
Yeah.
game, but I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go punch somebody in their face because they just slide my friend. But it really brings that out of you, and then you remember these stories, and then you tell them to people, and then people are like, "Wow, I thought it was just rolling dice and just doing math," and
I
they're
thought
like,
it was a video game.
"Yeah, yeah," or that. And then
Yeah.
you get into it, and you're just like, you all share an experience together, and it's something that you never forget. Like you can go out to a bar and just have good times there, like and stuff like that. But people will be like, "Remember when you killed that fire giant in one shot?" And you all feel that good, warm feeling. It's special what D&D does.
Yeah. Have you ever been out somewhere in public and you overheard like the people, whatever, at the next table over or the next aisle over, and they're saying something like that, like, and then the fire giant did something, and you're like, shit, they're talking about D&D.
Yes,
And
I've had it happen. I
you
walked
can
in.
even open up conversations that way too. I've found that usually people are pretty cool about it. Like if even though you're a stranger, just say, "Hey, are you guys talking about D&D?" And yeah, and then you immediately have this like something in common
Yeah,
that
it's a
you can.
connection. It bonds you.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I've run into that. I've actually at my local game store pre-COVID. When I first went there for the first time, it was two guys talking, and I was about to leave because I just bought a miniature. And he says, and I rolled in that 20 and I burned down the orphanage. And I was like, what? And I was like, he's talking about
That was the nat 20? You're sure that wasn't the nat 1
or
that caused you to burn
one
down
of
the
those.
orphanage?
I was like, how did you? I'm like, you rolled a nat 20 to burn on it orphanage? He was like, yeah, yeah. And he was like, I'm playing chaotic character. And it was like, it was something to do with either their souls were already sold or something to that. So it was more of like a mercy killing. And I was like, what happened in your campaign that burning down an orphanage was the better option?
Yeah. Yeah. Immediately there's the story right there.
Exactly.
Um, there's kind of two modes that I think people get into with making characters. There's more than two, but these are like the two big ones that I always think of. One is where you invest yourself, like who you really are, into your character, and your character becomes an avatar of your own true self,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe an avatar of who you wish you could be, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe the potential of who you could be in this kind of fantastical, exaggerated form.
Yes.
And so, maybe the character even kind of looks like you, or they kind of talk like they. You've got it's very similar to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other mode is you make a character that is so not like you,
Yes.
or maybe it's like this part of you that you keep repressed because it's like the part of you that would burn down an orphanage or something, right? It's like
Yeah.
shit you wouldn't really want to do in real life, but
Exactly.
it's like, well, since this is just all imagination, why don't I just go ahead and try being this bastard for a while and just
Yeah.
experiment with that. And you know maybe there's somebody out there who, if they wouldn't have had this kind of creative outlet, they really would have gone and burned down an orphanage.
Maybe some of the things I've heard people doing in D&D, and they live such straight-laced lives. Like you'll have
Yeah,
somebody who's like a pediatrician, and then like in their D&D campaign, they're like a tyrant who does the most bizarre things. And I'm like, this is so anti-you. Where is this coming from?
yeah. I think we've all got it in us, man.
Yeah,
i think
I agree.
I think all people have like the capacity or whatever to go totally off the deep end, or to into something good as well. We've
Hmm.
all like the whole like a D&D alignment chart or alignment spectrum.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, you can't just say like, well, X person or Y person, they could never, they could never hurt an animal. That's so out of their character. And it's like, yeah, usually that's true.
Yep.
But there's got to be some kind of like dire circumstance in which they got pushed to their absolute limit, and then
Flip
they
the
would
script.
hurt an animal, or they like some demon lurking beneath the surface rears its ugly head that they didn't even know about,
Hmm.
right? Because how well do you really know yourself,
Exactly. Or how?
right? So
Yeah.
I think D&D is cool in that way, that you can both test out or express like something that you really wish you could be and you really do identify with it.
Mhm.
You can also experiment with something that's like, I I don't really want to do that in real life. I don't really want to be a street thief. I think the thief archetype is a good one, an easy, kind of typical one, right?
Hmm.
Because you know in real life it's a pretty shitty thing to go stealing stuff from other people.
Yeah.
But there's this kind of allure to it, and like we've all watched
Yeah.
Aladdin and other movies and books where there's this kind of thief roguish character, but he's just so damn likable for some reason because
Yeah,
he's
you
so
love him. He
skillful.
walks on the wild side, and it's cool to see somebody do that.
Yeah, there's the allure of it, right? It's like this. It's like the allure of the shadow, or the allure of the dark side, or the allure of doing what's wrong.
Hmm.
because, you know, there's something to that. I mean, sure, it's wrong to steal. We all know that.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's an allure to it. No
Yeah,
one would
there's
do it.
something
No one
there.
would do it otherwise,
Exactly.
right? And plenty of video games you can do this. You know, like Skyrim. I have this one thief character that's so fun to play, sneaking around, picking pockets, picking locks,
Yeah.
creeping up through people's bedrooms while they're sleeping, and going through their pockets and their drawers and their cabinets. And there's a thrill. I don't know if it's adrenaline or what it is.
Yeah, I get you. Because it's
So
something you would never do, and it's fun to step outside of your norm and do something totally off the cuff.
yeah,
There's that side. Like a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people will play characters like that, and they are just regular people. There's nothing wrong with them, but their characters are so totally different from who they are.
yeah, and there's this kind of um, there's something with judgment. I'm trying to think how to put this. Okay, like with the video game doesn't judge you.
Hmm.
I mean, sure, maybe inside the game, like you get a bounty or the guardsmen come after you, and maybe you can go to prison or there's some kind of consequence. But you know, it's like NPCs that are scripted in a video game, so you don't really feel like you're being judged.
Hmm.
And you know, like art doesn't really judge you. You can listen to music, music doesn't judge you. D&D is kind of in that realm, kind of not. Like there's real people at the table. So there is some judgment that's going to happen, but also there's this understanding where we're role playing.
Yes,
And there's
exactly.
this kind of, what would you call it? Like an unspoken code,
Yeah, an unspoken agreement. Yeah.
or maybe spoken, right? You can talk about it, and that's cool
Mhm.
too. And you can say, all right, you know, X, Y, and Z are cool in this game, and you know, A, B, and C are not, or just don't uh, backstab each other, and otherwise, whatever, be
Yeah.
hellion. Um, but there's this nice, I think D&D has this nice balance of like trust and not too judgmental, but at the same time, there are people there, so there is this kind of social, um, well, I think a big social aspect to it. And then contrasting that with real life, there's a ton of judgment. A
Exactly.
bunch of just society is going to judge you. Your parents are going to judge you. Your friends might be judging you. Strangers for sure are going to judge you.
Hmm.
And you can say in the real world, you could say, you know, I would find it really exciting and appealing to creep through some stranger's house at night and go pilfering through their personal belongings in search of valuables and whatever thing to steal. And people are gonna be like, "What the hell is wrong with this guy? Like,
Exactly.
let's stay away from him. Do we
Yeah,
need to
I'm not gonna
report
trust this guy.
him to somebody?" uh, but as much as people will judge you, and they would say that, and I guess rightfully so, I bet like alone, one on one, they would relate to that feeling too.
Yeah, they probably do have those same thoughts.
Who hasn't done something at least naughty, like stolen cookie out of the cookie jar at least,
Hmm.
right? So it is there, but in a social context, we're like trying to make society function. So you have to like kind of
Exactly.
put on this mask of, oh, I'm a proper citizen.
A straight laced guy, but knowing full well that
But
behind closed doors you would do that too.
then you get to D&D and it's like, okay, well now it's easy enough to come and say, all right, I'm playing a rogue, I'm playing a thief, and no one will even think anything of that. No one will bat an eye. They're like, okay, cool, rogue in the party.
Exactly.
And they're thinking, oh, you're gonna, you know, pick locks and disable traps in the dungeon and steal from the dungeon or steal from the monsters. Or maybe when we're in town, you'll steal from some NPC that we don't really care about, anyways. Okay,
Exactly.
whatever. You're not going to steal from us. So you're on our side. No big deal. Um, and you get to explore the allure of that which is forbidden, but explore it in like a creative, um, I would say, positive or constructive way.
Yeah, exactly. They get to let out those thoughts in a game where there is no consequence for their, or no like outside real
Mhm.
world consequence.
Right,
And
right.
certain people, that's what they need. They need some way to curb that little itch that they may develop. And if they're
Yeah,
doing it in D&D, it's better than them doing it in real life.
sure thing. I draw monsters, and sometimes I draw really freaky things, like the concept you gave me.
Hmm.
It's like it's skulls and dead bodies, and there's like this walking graveyard thing. And I'll write stories sometimes that go to really dark places.
Hmm.
Sometimes I write something, and I'm like, gosh, I don't know if I would want my mom to read this. uh, so I think if I couldn't do that, something would be, I would have other problems in my life. Like maybe I would be like a, I don't know, a wife beater, or a real thief, or I would have some kind of like violence problem or anger problem or something. I think some things, if it just got suppressed, it would manifest itself in like a literal way and have uh, strange and problematic consequences.
Yeah, I
I might
understand
be
that.
in jail and not talking to you now.
Yeah, I get you, and like, hey, it's a constructive. There's no consequence, and it's just make believe. So go for it.
I and people like that too, like the horror genre is a thing. And
Hmm.
lots of people read horror and watch horror movies. There's plenty of great horror. There's terrible ones too, but there's plenty of great ones. And like, nobody wants to be eaten by a zombie or whatever, slashed up by Freddy Krueger, but there's something darkly appealing about it. I,
Yeah,
do you have an idea of what that might be?
I I guess if I had to give it, I would say, like we were talking about earlier, it's a side of you that yourself, probably your parents, and just whoever been around you in society likes to be like, no, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that. And rightfully so. Most of the things on those lists tend to be really bad things, and they can get pretty like depraved depending on the individual. But in when you get into games like that, you'll see a lot of people just killing random things or doing random things, and then you're like, damn, why are you killing everybody? And it's like, because this is a game. And all those little like dark things that lurk in everybody, you get to like act them out in a game, in a
Mm-hmm.
place like you said earlier, where there is no real consequence.
Mm-hmm.
So and
Do
like
you think we're learning something from that? Like acting out these like pathological behaviors, or even we don't even have to go to that direction. We could just go with like, the dark themes, like the character's a warlock and you're fighting some necromancer who is raising people back into undead forms and going to
mhm.
these dark topics. And that can be appealing too. Do you think we're learning something from that? Like we're learning about some kind of threat or danger and like how we could avoid it? Maybe it's like relates to our survival instinct.
I think so. I think we would be learning from that. If anything, I don't know. When I play in campaigns with my friends, like there are some things where we just don't go, but for the most part, especially when I DM, like I'm like, guys, this is a serious campaign. It's not gonna be like just murder, like infanticide, this and that. But things happen in this world, and when
Mm-hmm.
people will react to them, they'll be like, wow, or people will do things like that. What I've seen, at least in my games, is when I have a topic like most recently there was like kids in my thing in my campaign, this kind of an eldritch thing. Kids got infected by this virus and they had to kill them because they were turning like eldritch horrors. And one of my players was like, wow, like we just had to kill children. And I'm like, And then they think about it and they're like, I could never do this in real life. And I'm like, well, good. You don't want to do this in good life, but I think it also teaches you.
It can be a really tense moment,
Yeah,
storytelling when they have to make a decision between two terrible things, and they're trying to decide which one is the least bad or the least
exactly.
what's going to lay weigh least on their conscience later,
Mhm.
but it'll still eat at them if they think about it still.
Exactly. I agree.
Now, did you bring a different topic? I know we've been talking about this, which has been pretty
Yeah.
cool.
It
But
was
was there something else that you wanted to talk about as well?
it was kind of like I was just gonna say it because I don't know if it's like a question. It's more of a topic.
Hmm.
One thing that I've learned from you just and I've been implementing in my games is like things like religion and backstory. And I go back to your what was the campaign where it was Tomb of Black Tongue, where you were like just the streets, how you were talking about there's people talking about philosophy, there's vendors selling olive oil and things like that. Like weren't even on the street level, you were down in the tomb. And I find myself doing that, but where I run into a problem is I get so trying to add all of these things
Hmm.
that it'll be an hour in and I'm writing a backstory to the mayor and I'm like, bro, you're not even on the campaign anymore. So I the question that I wanted to ask you is how do you manage to add so much like richness into your story and don't get caught up in every single character getting fleshed
Yeah,
in,
yeah,
every single stone in the
yeah.
city having a meaning?
Yeah. That is a balancing act you have to do. So, if we have, well, imagine a spectrum. So on one end, there's no detail, no backstory, no world building, no motivations, no personality. It's just everything is stock, right?
Mhm.
You are stock characters. You got your fighter, your cleric, your rogue, your wizard. You're fighting orcs. They are orcs. They're the most generic orc stereotype possible. All right, you kill them, you get treasure. What is it is gold pieces, and everything is the most shallow cardboard cutout version possible.
Mhm.
Then the other end of the spectrum, we have the opposite problem where, like you said, you're an hour in and you're still just describing the what do you call it? The exposition, right?
Exactly.
You're talking about stuff that like the player characters are probably not even related to it. The players maybe are bored or falling asleep on you,
Exactly.
and it's essentially just you talking to yourself,
Hmm.
and it's just you like. And then when the mayor turned 13, he had his coming of age ceremony where he had to select apples while blindfolded. And if he picked a green apple, then he was destined to lead a bitter and tragic life. And if he picked a red apple, he would have a sweet and
Hmm.
fortunate life. And you've just gone on this soliloquy forever. And every NPC is like a Shakespearean monologue. And the players have to like remember a billion details to figure out the solution to whatever the villain's plot is in the adventure, and it's just an overload.
Exactly.
Okay, so we want to balance those two things, right?
Hmm.
That's the main idea. And why do we want to balance them? We want to balance them because if there's not enough soul to it, it feels shallow and meaningless and pointless.
Hmm.
If I have to play stock wizard casting generic fire spell to kill stereotype orc to get generic gold, like why do I care? Like I've seen that
Exactly.
1,000 million times. Who are these people? Why do I give a damn about them? Why do I even want to kill this orc? Maybe I should go try to talk the orc into having a beer with me and tell me about your orc tribe. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're going to start screwing with stuff just for something interesting to happen. And
Exactly.
it's like a theater stage with no costumes, no props, and all the actors have their scripts in their hands and are reading without doing any acting at all, just with monotone voices. Oh, this is the worst of time. So, all right. So that's a reason why we don't want it to be lacking in detail and richness and story and character and motivation and all these things that I encapsulate with soul. When I think of soul, I think of like depth and meaning,
Hmm.
and you're like inside of a continuation of this greater story, right? There's something you feel that resonates on a deeper level. And why do we want to avoid too much details? Well, I guess I've kind of already described it. People get overloaded. It kind of exhausts their their short-term memory,
Hmm.
and it's just too much, right? It's like you're trying to lift all the weights at the gym all at one time, and so you're just it's a flood, and everyone's drowning in the flood. So you don't want to be dying of thirst in the desert with no water, and you don't
Exactly.
want to be drowning in a flood. And that's really important, right? Those are important things to keep in mind. So, all right. So how do we balance this? I could talk about this a lot. Why don't I try to give some very specific techniques that I use?
Hmm.
You talked about the mayor of the city. Okay, so what I would do is I would I would start off with what is his role in the story or in the world. Okay, so he is authority figure of the town, and I would write, if I could, yeah, I would write something like this, and you can even make like a spreadsheet out of this if you want it to be really concise.
Hmm.
All right, so I would have like some kind of spreadsheet with like some columns, and it'd be like name, and think about the name too. Names can really express a lot as well. The name, and then that basic info that we just said, like mayor, human, male, uh, if he has a class or like some kind of profession.
Hmm.
Maybe mayor is all you need, but maybe he's more than just mayor. Maybe he's like a cleric also, or
Yeah.
a paladin, or you could make something up, right? Freaking captain, right? Um, Maybe put an age. Um, so I'm going to do this here. So let's think of a name for the mayor. Do you have a setting of your own, or are you in like a published setting? Give me a setting for this mayor to be.
It would probably be my own setting. There, it's kind of like a valley.
It's a valley.
It's a valley where where this setting would be at.
Drawing inspiration from like standard fantasy, medieval Europe, or is it a drawing from some other culture or something else totally different?
Probably about standard fantasy, maybe a little. For this part of my world, it's kind of Lord of the Rings. I was thinking more of like a Shire kind of like setting.
Okay. Small, semi-rustic valley, standard fantasy. All right. So this is good. You don't have to write this stuff down. Just
Hmm.
get the general feeling of it in your mind. You can see something in your imagination, or you can start to see something in your imagination, and you develop it from there. You kind of garden it or build it up from there. All right. So let's give him a name. Let's call him T. T seems like a strong letter. Ton Theodore or Tundrick Lodor. Okay, I took a little bit of inspiration from Lord of the Rings. All right,
Okay.
so we have Tundrick Lodor.
Okay.
So is that a good name? I guess it's pretty good. It sounds pretty strong, right? Tundrick
I'm way
Lodor.
too.
All right, Mayor. M, male, human. How old do we think this guy is? Is he an old man? Is he middle aged? Is he a young mayor?
Like
is
40, I think like 40, 42. He's
middle
been
age.
there for a bit.
All right, 42. Okay. So we have just established kind of the skeleton of this character.
Hmm.
We know where he's at. We know what his role is in the society. We got his race, his age, his name. What else do we have? His gender.
Hmm.
Uh, so that's enough for kind of the skeleton, but it's still pretty generic. Okay, now we get into the good stuff. I've got these three other columns, and what do we got? We got ideal, bond, flaw. You could change this up if you want. It doesn't have to be the same like three players handbook things, right? You could even
Okay.
make it like motivation, secret, current goal, current like the current thing he's involved in. What would we call that?
Mhm.
Plan, activity, whatever. So these are good things because now we're going to see what does he value, uh, what is motivating him, what's driving him,
Mhm.
why is he doing what he does, and something flawed or secret or some darker side. Okay, so Tundrick, what is Tundrick's ideal? We can also call this motivation.
Okay. I guess for Tundrick.
We forgot his alignment. I was thinking like we forgot something in there. Where
Mhm.
human, mayor 42. What alignment do you most associate him with?
Probably neutral. He's a
Neutral.
very yes.
Okay. All right. Mayor, neutral, male, human, 42. Okay. So if he's neutral, his ideal or his motivation probably relates to that in some way, right? If
Mhm.
he's neutral, he probably doesn't have a really strong extreme to one way or the other motivation. Does he care about just himself? Like,
I would say in this, he would probably care about himself, but also he cares about the village and it's staying like sustainable because it benefits him.
mhm. Comfort?
Yeah, I'd say comfort, like a very yeah, very much a guy of comfort.
He wants things to stay steady,
Steady.
calm,
He wants things to stay steady
predictable.
and steady, sustainable, and like keep everybody thinking that things are like flowers and rainbows. Because
Uh-huh.
if they figure out the real, then they would realize that either they want to leave or they want a new mayor.
Keep everyone comfortable, keep everyone um,
Like complacent.
complacent. Yeah, there we go. Complacent. That's a strong word. All right. So that's his motivation, or we could also call it his ideal, right?
Hmm.
Maybe we could say, if we want to split hairs, his ideal is comfort and his motivation is he wants to keep everyone complacent.
Yes.
Okay. Uh, Bond, or we could also think of like a current agenda, what he's currently actively involved with or responsible for. Because he can't just be, and this is true for all characters, by the
Hmm.
way, you can't just be this like solitary speck of dust floating on the wind that's not attached to anything. It's boring. It's
Yeah.
boring and it's too easy. It's like I'm just a wandering guy that doesn't care about anything.
Yeah.
Like,
So I would
eh.
say maybe since he's doing everything to keep things comfortable, maybe he's a part of a family of people who do of and his entire family does things like this. They get into positions of power where they all like I don't know, maybe
Are you saying like his family reputation or family tradition?
it's kind of like a family tradition, like it's like a more or less like a family of professional crooks.
Uh huh. Okay. So family Yeah, it's kind of like a tradition, but it's more like a family.
Hmm.
It's it's what they've been doing for a long time. Family lineage. I'm going to pull up the thesaurus. I don't know if you
Okay.
go to, I don't know if you use thesaurus.com/dictionary.com or others. It's very helpful when you get stuck like this. All right, I'm going to put in tradition, family, attitude, belief, custom, habit, heritage, institution, practice, birthright, conclusion, convention, custom. Well, it is like a belief, right? Like they believe that they need to be the ones who maintain control, authority, maintain the same way. We'll go with tradition for now, and we'll just understand that what that means in the context of his family is
Okay.
he, like those before him, need to maintain this certain type of control. Um, family tradition of controlling the populace, keeping the populace under control, keeping the populace complacent, keeping keeping things calm.
Yes.
I've got a potential update improvement to the name thanks to Adam, aka Strat Player.
Okay.
Instead of Tundrick, Thadwick.
Thadwick. I like that.
And I think Lodor would sound even better if it was Londor, Thadwick Londor,
Hmm.
Thadwick Londor. Okay. Flaw or secret.
I would say for like a flaw or secret. Hmm. I guess maybe he tried a little, he stretched his influence and stepped on a few too many toes. So now I guess worse people are coming after him and everything. So that would include his village.
Okay. He has um, wronged. He's wronged the wrong people.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's wronged the wrong people, right? Well, that's kind of like doing the wrong thing at the wrong place in the wrong time with the wrong friends.
Yeah.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yep. I love that one.
Wrong. He's wronged the wrong people, and they what they want revenge,
They would want revenge, and these are kind of people that when they come for everything you have.
and they want total revenge.
Yes.
They want utter revenge. Uh huh. Okay. Okay. So you can probably sense here that suddenly we just came to a turning point where things just got a lot more interesting. It started off pretty, like I said, bare bones, and then it's like, okay, oh, it's getting a little bit of layer to him. Ah, now we come to the good stuff. So
Hmm.
there's a reason why he has that motivation of he wants to keep the facade that everything's fine and hunky dory and just go to work, drink your ale, everything's fine. Don't question the your government is in control. Now drink your beer and go back to bed.
Yeah.
He wants everything to stay complacent.
Uh huh.
Um, and his there's some kind of family, it's more than just tradition. There's some kind of pressure on him, right?
Yes.
Because if he screws this up, like the family could be done for. They could be ruined.
Exactly.
Maybe someone could die. It depends how ruthless and bloodthirsty the wronged party is.
Hmm.
And that's a pretty strong motivation now to not uh, bring about the downfall of his entire family and himself and completely lose face in this town that he's been the leader of. But he himself is not you wouldn't describe him as evil. You would describe him as neutral.
Yeah, he's not an evil guy.
Mm.
Like he wouldn't like just like do anything diabolical. He's just like
He
generally.
has he he can be kind of a bastard in some ways,
Mhm.
but he has this limit.
Yes,
He's not going to cross it and just like all out do egregious, heinous things against people.
exactly.
He'll kind of screw them over here and there and use the authority that he has, kind of over abuse his power a bit,
Mhm.
but nothing extreme. That's interesting. Yeah, he's more of a gray character.
Very much.
That's cool. Um, the only other thing that I might want to put right on here is agenda, like some kind of specific agenda. Like,
Mhm.
is he meeting with some informants or advisors or someone to help him figure out a strategy to avoid this catastrophe of these revenge-seeking wrong people?
I guess for that situation, it would be more. What comes to mind is like he might have an answer, and this probably goes into another of the facade aspect. He some in his quest to try to like keep everything complacent. Somebody has brought up something that it'd be like, oh, go to this guy. He solves everybody's problems, but he has this strange feeling that that gentleman who everybody keeps saying is just this fixer,
Mm-hmm.
he could be like something could be like wrong with him or something maybe like the occult is with him and he's
Mm.
just like hey man I have these guys after me because I stepped on their toes. Now you're bringing up somebody over here that's magically solving all these problems
Mm.
who we don't know who he is or what he is or how he's solving everyone's problems.
I've stirred up the hornet's nest. The last thing I need is to go and get tangled up in these spider webs over here too.
Exactly.
But maybe he sees, well, this might be my only chance.
Hmm.
Okay, so he is, what is that? Well, it's like a dilemma, right?
Yeah,
So
very
he's
much.
struggling. All right, so he's struggling. He's trying. That's what he's doing. He's trying to find a solution, but might have to resort to, you called it a fixer. Okay, that's a good way of putting it. Have to resort to uh, dangerous. What would you call this fixer person? Potentially dangerous.
Potentially dangerous and like I guess because the way I have it in my mind is like this guy.
Precarious.
Yeah, like just very mysterious. Like it's like, hey,
Mm,
I'll solve your problem. Don't worry, but I'm
dubious.
gonna come back and I'm gonna
Dubious.
need a favor from you.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And when you
Du-
ask like, what is the favor? He was like, well, when that issue comes up, I'll tell you what the favor is.
Sounds like a devil to me if I've ever heard one.
Hmm.
Okay. So now this is like fast chicken scratch notes. I don't expect anyone to actually read this legibly. Um, but you could, take your own notebook or do a spreadsheet. I like to use Google Docs because it's just all saved forever on any device I can access it.
Hmm.
It's real convenient, but whatever you like the best. So that right there is enough to really get things cooking.
Okay.
Notes like that, where you have name, and then we have like the what would you call, like the core um, categories:
Yeah.
race, class, age, gender, alignment, and then these good things: his ideal slash motive, what's his motivation, what does he care about, what does he value,
Hmm.
his bond, what is he personally connected to, something that he's steeped in it and he's responsible for it.
Exactly.
his flaw, or we might call this his secret. Flaws don't have to be secrets. Those, you can have both a flaw and a secret. You can do whatever you want, but these are good things to make notes of. And then we have this like agenda, this like current, it's like the specific thing that he's taking actual actions on. You need some concrete actions. It can't all be abstract stuff. You need to be, like you said, he talked to, you know, Jackie McDowell, who said, old bone rattler up on the mountain can fix your problem, but it'll come at a price. Well, I have, you know, the wealth of my family at my disposal. I would rather spend half of it on him than lose it all to the venge seekers.
Exactly.
The price might be different than what you expected. It might not be something that you can pay off or you can buy off with money.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's pacing about his room, unable to sleep at night, and yet another day has gone by where he has not found a third potential solution between go to mountain dubious warlocky guy,
Mm-hmm.
or face the music of these cutthroat mob or whatever.
Yeah.
Brigands.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was gonna say syndicate.
Or that works too.
Maybe they're less organized. They're more, you know, brigands out of the hills are going to descend. So we can see him actively doing some specific things. It's more than just the abstract stuff. So this can be just like notes that take up literally this much space, 2 lines on a notebook, or maybe if you've got small font, 1 line on a spreadsheet, 1 or 2. That has so much goodness in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a really potent espresso shot instead of having to elaborately make a whole coffee shop out of it. And so when I'll do that for the important NPCs in a campaign. Some NPCs will get more notes than others naturally.
Yes, that makes sense.
Maybe the barkeep, all I have is a first name, a personality trait, you know.
Yeah.
Barkeep, Brutus, rude.
Yeah.
And then other NPCs, they might have more notes like Thadwick, Londor. And another little sidebar, have a friend like my buddy Adam here, the strat player,
Yeah.
who you can toss an idea out to. He's going to come back with all sorts of creative stuff.
Yeah.
He is saying that the Londor family gets their name from their heritage of originally creating long doors, outfitting gates for castles, keep, forts, and other such things. Yeah, so if you have a friend who like has a very detailed, great memory and like a creative mind, you can bounce ideas back and forth off of them, and they'll like shotgun effect, spitball a bunch of ideas at you, and you can be like, oh, I like that one. Oh, I like that one.
Mm-hmm.
And you could make whatever another footnote on Thadric here because he's so important.
Mm-hmm.
That might be enough for you, man. And you just improv the rest.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with like writing out a page or a couple pages if you really are feeling the inspiration, but you have to keep in mind that what's practical when you're actually at the table or at the computer,
Mm-hmm.
when you're actually in game playing. It's not always practical to have, you know, a wall of text. Sometimes it's practical just to have, okay, I needed to remember that was his personality trait, and that was like his agenda that he's currently pursuing, and that was the name of the NPC that he wronged. Maybe you'll make us like a note of what he did wrong. He blackmailed them. He promised them one thing. He promised the brigands something so that maybe he could get out of trouble in the moment. And then he got out and they're like, okay, we're going to let you go this time. So let's meet back here by the old stump, at full moon. And then he gets back to his manor. And he's like, well, I've got my strong manor walls and the door's locked and I've got my guardsmen.
Yeah.
So
I'm all good.
forget about those stupid brigands. Like, what are those barbarians going to do? Storm the city gates? And then the full moon passes and the next full moon passes. And then a little birdie comes and informs him, you might have underestimated these brigands. This is actually the, blood-soaked brothers, and they're sworn to this demon lord and have favor with some dark force and storm the gates. Like they can burn the whole town to ashes.
They could sack the city easily.
You grossly underestimated them. Whatever. So maybe you make some little note,
Yeah.
But I do a lot of improving. I like to do note taking and world building and stuff. Mm-hmm. But as much as I love to do the writing, I also equally love improvising.
Yeah.
And if you have these strong trait, bond, motivation, agenda, secret, flaw, these strong things,
mm-hmm.
you can improv, you can riff off of that real easily. Because no longer are you having to improv everything and you just like this octopus man trying to like pull everything together in the spur of the moment.
Yeah.
Like I could role play this NPC right now. We could do a whole session. We could base it off of this guy.
Exactly.
And stuff will just fly out of my mouth. Like, where the hell did that come from? I don't know. But these like juicy details, they can really be like this fuel for your fire of improvisation. And the beauty of the improvisation is it's real, like it's live and you're there with the other players.
Yeah.
And you're feeding off of each other and you're in a conversation and their character talks and the NPC talks and then maybe they're trying to uncover his secret and he's trying to he doesn't want to lose face. And I know he wants to keep people complacent. So maybe he's going to call people out of the room to be real quiet. And here's the little details you mentioned earlier. These details that add the richness and the grit of the world, they start to just blossom kind of out of the ether.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had a good grip on this character. So that's what I do. That's not what I do 100% of the time, but that's what I do 80% of the time, or maybe 90%.
And thank you, because that actually helps a lot. I'm gonna definitely try that method next time I come up with a character, or even because with that you could apply that to a city and things like that. It may take some tweaking, but that framework is definitely going to help a whole lot.
It's seeking that balance that I talked about, right? In a way, it's simple,
mm-hmm.
but in another way, it's got these juicy bits, right? It's got this richness to it, because there's things are at stake and there's a story and he cares about stuff and he's connected to things and he's connected to his family at the very least.
Yeah.
We know so much already in a very small amount of space. If you ever get stuck while you're doing these kind of notes and you're like, okay, the fixer, right? I call him the warlock on the mountain. I don't know where the hell that came from. So okay, what about him? What are his traits and his secrets stuff? And you get in this kind of block. You can just go to random generators. And I love doing this. You can find any kind of random generator on the internet. You can find a random character generator, a random motivation generator, a random image generator, a random word generator,
mm-hmm.
and just let the magic of chaos, the wild magic surge, explode in front of you. And you're like, oh, hella cool. He's missing one of his arms.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a half. What is he half of? He's a half merfolk. I don't know what the hell that would be. A Triton. Okay. He's a Triton or a Genasi, right? He's a half Earth Genasi who's missing an arm. He just has these shards sticking out and there's scrapes around the walls of his cavern because he like it's a tight fit in there, and his shard stump scrapes the walls when he walks by.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's a million ways to get through these
Yeah.
little stuck spots.
But yeah, that method definitely helps a whole lot, because I was pulling my hair out trying to do everything from coming up with character concepts to like names and everything, and I was just tearing my hair out. But that helps a whole lot.
Well, don't tear your hair out. That's an awful thing to do.
Yeah.
If you haven't noticed, I am a lover of hair myself.
Yeah, I can see it's getting long.
There's other ways to do this. There's always more than one way to skin a cat, but this is a way that I've found works pretty well, and it's a good balance, and it's really practical. And then you can apply this to other NPCs. You can apply it to a location, a storyline. You can apply it to a dungeon. You can apply it in different areas of your campaign, and you're going to find that just through the mere act of just playing, like live in the session, ideas are going to come to you, and over time you're going to layer on more details and more history, and things will deepen naturally and organically as you go.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great topic. So I guess I'll wrap things up there with you and see if I can't answer a couple live stream questions.
Okay.
But a couple of great topics we talked about here, man. It's been great having you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, well, take care, and I'll see you around, man.
You too. Take care, Esper.
All right, bye. All right. So I hope that was helpful for everyone there. That's something that really can get overwhelming, building NPCs, world building, and all that stuff. Like you can really get into that. I've found that for the more long form stuff where I'm like writing pages and pages, that's better suited to when I'm writing short stories or working on my books. And that's where it's good to just like really go all out willy-nilly, and stuff gets super complex. It works good in the long form things. The D&D isn't exactly that. It's usually better to have something like practical and just like this juicy punch that you can draw upon quickly, that like hooks people and helps you improvise and helps you get a good image in your mind of who a character is. And then like woof, from there you improv it, and man, roll some dice if you want, right? Roll a d20. I do this all the time when I'm DMing, and just the general gist of it, the general idea is that 1 is always easy, less extreme, right? It's like the small stuff, and then that scales all the way up to the 20, which is like the most difficult, strongest, extreme end of stuff. And you can apply that to anything. This NPC, what kind of temperament does he have? Okay, I just rolled a 9. He's a pretty ordinary guy, just wants to go about his way. If you rolled a 19, he's going to be like loud and opinionated and wild, and he's going to have something extreme about him. If you rolled a 1, maybe like a meek, insecure, secretive. Maybe the player characters wouldn't even notice him. He's posing as someone very inobtrusive. Whether 1, so 1 is always the easiest, slightest, softest. So like the 1, I guess, would be like the most beautiful, tranquil day ever, and the 20 is like it's a hailstorm with lightning bolts or a blizzard or something like that. Color. 1 would be maybe white, or like the softest color, faintest, slightest color. And 20 would be the most vivid, intense color ever. You can literally do this with everything. Morale. 1, they have no morale. So 1 is always the lowest. So they're like, they're running and they're fleeing. 20, they're going to fight you to the death. They are all in on this moment. So you can roll the D20 while you're improving stuff. And that's another cool tip. I could give tips all night long, but let's do some Q&A. See if we got some comments from you all here. Thanks, guys. Hope this has been an enjoyable stream for you as it has for me. All right. Just chuckling at some of the comments I'm getting here. Strat player, if a tree grows in the cemetery of a sepultura, does it have roots? Bloody roots. This is something I gave a lot of thought to, because I did want there to be roots on the sepultura, and there is roots. I'll show everybody the sepultura here. This is the undead earth elemental who Nigel, aka Mad Freak, gave me the concept for, and will be in Esper's Emporium of Esoterica in the cycle of 4 undead elementals that are being featured. There is the Sepultura for earth, the Shipwretch in the water, the Blightning for air, and the Bonefire for fire. Though I might be doing a vampire, that's Pyre, like a funeral pyre. I think Bonefire is going to be the way to go. So it was important to me that there are some roots, because this thing is like a walking graveyard. Soil and stone and tombs and dead bodies risen up into a giant form. So naturally there would be roots in the soil, and roots are just a cool look, right? They add a nice little detail to art. And I thought about the blood, man. I really thought about the blood, but it wasn't working. It wasn't working practically. When I went to paint the blood in there, it didn't look good. It was like it clashed. And then it also didn't work thematically, because like there's no more blood here. Like they're like old dead things. The blood's long since rotted and putrefied, and it wouldn't be there anymore. But the roots, maybe they're bloody in the sense of like, damn it, those are some roots. All right, Sepultura. Check out the pre-order for the book, everyone. Let's keep going. When an undead elemental is created, does it arise? It does indeed arise. Christopher Fairchild. Oh my God, I've experienced both toxic and clean investments. I actually had one of those experiences in the last session I had. I didn't understand that. Well, Siri, you don't understand a lot of things. I don't know if you guys just heard my Siri go off there. Yeah, you're right, Christopher. There's like the toxic side to the being really invested in your character and expressing who you are through your character. And there's also the toxic side of exploring the dark side of things that you wouldn't normally do in real life, but kind of exploring it through a creative outlet in D&D. There's a toxic side to everything. So you got to watch out for that. Watch out for the signs. Typically, toxic people or people with toxic behavior, they give you warning signs. There's red flags. You probably, they're usually there when you first meet them. I've observed that more often than not, within just like the first, say, few minutes, maybe within the first 10, 20 minutes of meeting someone, there is usually some kind of red flag present that is indicative of a larger problem that you will encounter, or you would encounter, if you continue the friendship or whatever with this person. Sometimes they even just tell you. You'll find that when people are at first they're strangers, people can kind of like say things in a less filtered way because they don't really care as much. They're not really so invested yet, and they'll kind of blurt out stuff, or they'll admit things. And then if you do become friends with them later, that goes away, and they kind of hide or repress that because now they've got some investment in the friendship. And that will go on for a time. And then that thing that they try to tell you about at the very beginning, that's awful about them, like it erupts out like this aberrant horror that had been lurking beneath the frozen ice. And that's a much worse situation than just cutting off the contact from the beginning. In a D&D group, when you have these toxic people or toxic behavior, just communicate, just be open, just talk about it. It's not always comfortable, but just get it out there, get it out in the open, and just say, I've observed this. It's not sitting right with me. I'm concerned about it. I've got this concern, guys. Here's my concern. My concern is this thing or this player. Here's why I'm concerned about it, and I'd like to figure this out. What do you reckon? Just, you don't have to overdo it. Just put it out there, and you can usually work through these problems, fix them, or maybe get the caustic player out of the group if need be. But the more you delay on it, the more you avoid it, and the more you don't talk about it, the worse it's going to get. Luckily, I haven't had to deal with that all too much. I have had to deal with it some, yes, but nothing too extreme. Most people are within a realm of being reasonable. Thackeray's mom. Hi, Nigel. So that must be hi, Thackeray's mom. I hope you enjoyed the stream. She commented that like an hour ago. She's probably not actually hearing me now. If only I had a second head. One head could read and respond to comments while the other head could engage in the dialogue. Let's see if there's any other questions from you guys, because I do have this cool thing behind me that I wanted to show off, at least for a little bit. It is Groundhog Day. Happy Groundhog Day, everybody. He saw his shadow. He fled back into his hidey hole to hibernate for 6 more weeks of winter. But, that's like the normal length of winter anyways. So, so be it. Let's see. Any other questions from you all? Okay, I'm not actually seeing too many questions this stream. Why don't I go ahead and show off a thing. I have recently purchased, and by doing so recovered, a wondrous relic, an artifact, veritably, from my childhood. The one, the only, the beloved Hero Quest. Oh my God, there's a goblin on the floor. Oh, he must have fallen out of the box. Oh, someone could step on this. They could damage the poor goblin, or maybe even the bottom of their foot. So, yeah, I'm so happy. This just arrived today. I found a really good deal on eBay for this game that was very important in my path as an RPG guy and as a dungeon master, a GM, I guess, in general terms. I don't want this to fall apart because it's a bit old. It's from, I believe, it's from 91. Angle my camera a little bit down so you all can see it better here. One of the best pieces of cover art ever known to the history of man. So I don't know if anyone has played Hero Quest. I'm sure some of you have. This is a fantasy dungeon crawling board game. I wouldn't call it an RPG. It kind of is. Yeah, it's kind of an RPG, but it's not so deep like D&D. Think of it like a very, very, very simple D&D with 4 pre-gen characters and very simple pre-gen dungeons. And you explore the dungeons, watch out for traps and hazards, fight the monsters, get the treasure. And there's a very light storyline that flows through the different adventures, the different dungeons. There's a board, there's dice, there's pieces, there's cards. And the RPG element of it is very, very light. It's more a dungeon crawling board game. And it's got these plastic minis that aren't painted, though you can paint them. I have some left over from my original Hero Quest set that I lost along the way at some point. I think it was when my house got robbed many years back, like an old house that I used to live at. So most of it got stolen in the robbery. I'm pretty sure that's what it was from. But I do have a bit of leftover pieces from that do have a bit of painting on them. Here are some undead that I did some very simple. I don't know how. I don't think my camera is focusing very well for you to see these, but there's the mummy, and here are a couple of zombies, and the zombies carry these cleaver weapons. Got some blood on that one. And skeleton. The skeletons carry scythes. The minis in Hero Quest are just great. They're not overcomplicated or pretentious. They're simple, clear, effective, classic. They have an old school look to them that I really appreciate. There's the gargoyle. This is the strongest creature in the game. Well, I think there is one, the main villain, he's stronger, but otherwise the gargoyle is the strongest. I used this tomb piece in that Tomb of Blacktongue narrated adventure that that Nigel mentioned. The torture rack with a skull on it. There's something that has a rat on it, though I'm not immediately finding it. What else can I show off? So this is how I really got my start with tabletop role-playing games. As I said, the role-playing element in it is quite light, but it is there a little bit. And I used to play this as a kid. I got Hero Quest originally back when I was, I don't know, 10 or 11, something like that. I saw the ad on TV and was immediately hooked. I want this game, mom, dad. And then I got the game and I was so stoked, and I gathered my brothers, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna play this game, this amazing fantasy dungeon adventure game. And we opened it up, and what did I find? I found instruction booklet, and it said you must read the instruction booklet first before you play the game. By the way, this is Zargon. Zargon effectively is the GM / storyteller of the game. So I was Zargon. Big surprise, right? But I was disappointed. I have to read a book to play the game. I just want to play the game. I don't want to spend the first day reading a book. But I did. I read the book. Maybe I spent like an hour reading the book, and then we started playing. So yeah, here's the whole rule. Here's the whole rule book, right? It's not a super complicated game. It's quite simple. And then here is the campaign, the quest book. And as you can see, the dungeons. The dungeons are like that. They're simple dungeons. Gosh, look at this art. It's I assume this is the inked drawn version of the cover. I don't think that's that's an inked version. Here's your character sheet, right? It's a simple character sheet. It's got some custom dice that you use for combat, and you roll 2d6 for movement. That's right. You don't have a set speed. You roll every turn, though some people they do a set speed. This is going to link to D&D, by the way. If anyone's watched my video about all the campaigns I've run, you kind of know where this is going. Here's the armory, the stuff that you can buy. Yes, the characters. All right, here are the 4 characters. The barbarian, who he's sort of like the main character. Like I would say of the 4, he's the most central character, probably the strongest character. He's definitely the combat wise, he's the strongest. The dwarf is the second most strongest in combat. He's just slightly behind the barbarian. He has 1 less body point and 1 more mind point. So it's kind of like 1 less hit point and 1 more willpower. He also can find and disarm traps without a trap disarming kit. The trap, what is it called? Toolkit. Without a toolkit, I guess he kind of carries his own dwarven tools with him. The wizard, who of course is the most frail physically and doesn't use many weapons and armor, though has the most spells. And the elf, who the few times that I got to play the game, I always wanted to play the elf. He was my personal favorite. And he's this balance of some combat, not quite as good as the dwarf or the barbarian, but he has some spells, though less spells than the wizard. So this kind of harkens back to the very old school days when certain races were classes, right? Like you're playing a fighting man or a magic user or a thief or an elf or a dwarf. That kind of really old school stuff. The Dungeon Master screen. I'm sorry, Zargon's screen. Check that out. Is that awesome? One of the best DM screens of all time. Oh, we're getting a glare, and we're seeing the various creatures from the game. We've got Chaos Warrior, Chaos Warlock, Chaos Warrior or Chaos Knight, Chaos Warrior. That's like Chaos Warlock or Chaos Sorcerer or something like that. Goblin, Orc, Gargoyle, Fimir, which is sort of a reptilian cyclops with a club tail. Really like this guy. Mummy, zombie, and skeleton. Are we missing anyone on there? Nope, they got them all on the screen. And then the game board. And what this game does is you use this game board every dungeon. Every single dungeon uses this, but they will just use certain parts of it, and you'll use the stone blocks. These stone blocks that block in and frame certain parts of the dungeon. So when you really nice details on here too, like there's a blood splatter somewhere and there's a little slimy bit and on one tile, and chunks of rubble and some skeletons and bones, and I think there's a boot in there somewhere. Where's the boot? There's a little scrap of a parchment. I love looking at these little details. Well, I swear there's a boot somewhere on one of these tiles. Maybe it's on one of the random treasure cards. It's a boot with a gem in it. What am I doing? I'm showing you the quest book. That's right. So you'll see what they do for the different dungeons is, see the grayed out area. You're just not using that part of the game board, and then it blocks in the area of that dungeon. The Fire Mage, the Lost Wizard. Man, this is like nostalgia to the max for me. I'm giddy. I'm giddy with this. And then there's a couple of expansions as well. There's Keller's Keep. Get close here to show y'all. Keller's Keep and Return of the Witch Lord. And they have additional quests and some more miniatures. Unfortunately, it's the same monsters. Like the Witch Lord one just has more of the undead, and then the Keller's Keep just has more orcs and goblins. And then there's some new types of terrain, and some additional items. So I played this a lot as a kid, and I loved this game, and it inspired me a lot and was very important in my formation as a DM, and in a way as a storyteller, but more DM. In the early 2000s, starting in like 2002 or 3, I pulled out my old Hero Quest game and gathered my friends. So I'm like in my early 20s, and I was like, hey, let's play this game, Hero Quest. I used to love this game. And we're playing Hero Quest, and we get through, some amount of the dungeons, and I'm thinking, I can see some ways we could improve on this game. Like, what if we created another character that you could play as. Yeah, what if there's like a dark elf or a priest? I think it's like a priest or something. Oh yeah, that's what I put in. There was two. There was the light cleric, the dark cleric. Um, so I added in a couple new characters, and I created some of my own dungeons and some of my own spells and items, and I made some of my own little monster tokens and little monsters out of Sculpey. So I made some of my own monsters too. And then I thought, oh, why don't I actually just make my own game system that's inspired by Hero Quest, but it's not Hero Quest. So then I made this game called Legendscape. And Legendscape was very inspired by Hero Quest in that it was a simpler game and the numbers, like the math of the game, was not very big. Like a goblin has one hit point and an orc has one or two. So you're never rolling a ton of dice and the numbers never get so big, but everything, still relatively has its degrees of power. And mine was more of an RPG. It really was an RPG, right? Like there was a world and there was a storyline, and you picked your class and your race, and you leveled up and you gained more abilities and spells and items as you leveled up, and it, like a D&D campaign. So it truly came into being an RPG with that mod. And then I played actual D&D. I played for the first time in the year, I guess technically the first time I ever played D&D was in the year 2000, but I didn't understand it very well. So I played it like properly for the first time in 2004, I want to say. I think 2004. Yeah, 2004. And that just blew my mind. And I was like, this Legendscape thing we thought was so cool and so like in depth. It was only in depth compared to Hero Quest, compared to like Yahtzee and Monopoly and board games. But compared to D&D, my game is like a minnow compared to a shark, a whale, really, or like a pond compared to the ocean. So then I went back to the drawing board and did several iterations of Legendscape. Eventually, Legendscape version 6 was actually a mod of 3.5 D&D. It was like my own Pathfinder before there was Pathfinder. And we played that intensely. And then we went on to 4th edition and now 5th edition. And here we are now. And like I've got a YouTube channel and the Bardstream, and holy hell, what has this turned into? It's snowballed so much. But thank you so much. I'm very, very thankful and very grateful that you all seem to enjoy and get something really worthwhile out of the content that I put out there. So I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart, and I'm going to continue doing what I love and continue striving to make great content. And I've always got new ideas, so there'll be some new stuff to come. Just wait. Let's see if there's a couple other questions I can get to before I wrap things up, because otherwise I'm just going to geek out in Hero Quest Nostalgia Land all night long with you. Mr. Sigmer, or maybe I should say this, Mr. Sigum ER. Hey Esper, I'm not doing good right now. I hope you're faring much better today. Keep up the great content. Well, you hang in there, man. I don't know, whatever it is that you're going through, like, hang in there and don't lose sight of the bigger picture. It's easy when we're going through a difficult moment to get wrapped up in that moment, and you can only see the challenge that's in front of you. Or maybe you have a bunch of challenges, because that's usually what happens in life, is you get this hydra attacking you from every angle, and it's like a bunch of knots, right? And maybe can seem impossible. So whatever your case is, you can't lose sight of the bigger picture. There's more than just the problem. There's all the good as well, and there's like the future good that can be. if you can draw upon your strength and your courage and your care, right? Take good care of yourself or take care of others that are going through their struggles and face it with some bravery and a bit of faith, and sometimes just freaking endurance. Sometimes that's it. You're just holding on and just getting through one day at a time through sheer fortitude, and then you can make it through and you improve, and then you become that future you, and you're glad that you made it through. So I wish I could tell you more, but that's okay. Just take care of yourself and don't lose hope. Let's see. What else? Omega Babylon. Dwarf is the best class, duh. People are very passionate. People that like dwarves, that really get into dwarves, very passionate about dwarves. Must be the epic beards. There's something dignified and very there is something about an epic dwarf beard that gives you a sense of grounding and clan and strength. I'll drink to that. B Cap or BCAP, excuse me, asks, hi Esper, just wondering if you could check out my campaign guide that I've been writing for some time now. Send it over to me, esperthebard@gmail.com. I cannot promise you a quick response time, but I'll do my best to take a glance at it and tell you what I think. Owen Keenan. Hey Esper, I've only ever played 5th edition. What do you miss that could be put into 5th edition to make it cooler? There's a lot of things I could say, but since we're really limited on time here, I'm just going to stick with one. The older editions had a variety of different art styles, and there was more artistic freedom and medium and technique and modes of expression. And I used to love looking through the D&D books. I still do, right? They're on my shelf. They're yeah, backwards with the camera. They're still there, and I can still look through them and appreciate the art and the wondrous variety of different art styles. And I used to really dig the way that you could discover artists that way, and you could look out for the artist pieces in future books. And I mean, this is before social media really became a thing. It was like you were just following the artist in your own way, like in just the classic original sense of being a fan. 5th edition has fantastic art. In some ways, it's like the highest quality art of D&D ever. But it looks very the same, very similar. They've gone for a homogenized aesthetic. And that's not my cup of tea. That's not really what inspires me. I don't like that everything looks the same. I like seeing different artists, different techniques, different styles. I love the wondrous variety. So with my RPG book that I'm working on, my 5e book, I'm trying to encourage the artists to really get into their own styles and follow their inspiration. And yeah, I wish 5e had that. I think it'd be cooler if the art had variety and more style and personality and soul, and less of the everything looks the same and like hyper polished. Last comment I'm going to read, and then I'll sign off. Christopher Fairchild, bruh, you've had me hooked since A Dagger for Fate. Respect. Thanks, man. I appreciate that so much. Ah, gosh, this is perhaps the most nostalgic of streams yet. I miss doing the narrated adventures. I miss doing the narrated interactive adventures where the viewers could comment on what they want the character to do, like a little vote. I miss that so much. I think about it a lot. I'm thinking about it all the time. And it will come again. Oh, yes, it will come again. Just wait. I've got an idea brewing, and I think it's going to be a great one. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your comments and your questions. I wish I could read more, but I've hit hour and a half mark, so I guess technically I'm over my time, but whatever, fine by me. This was another great session, and I'll see you soon in my Paladin ranking video. Have a good night, everyone. See ya.